Welcome to the DRGN SLYR Podcast by Frontier Credit Union. I am Steven. With me, as always, is Bailey, and today's guest, Brandon Bair. Brandon, you do all kinds of things. I'm not even sure how to introduce you exactly. Maybe the best thing to do is just let's get into it.
Yeah.
You have a really interesting backstory and history, and done a lot of really, really cool things. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Where were you born? I'm just kidding. We don't have to go that far back.
I was going to say, how far back are we going beginning here?
We don't have to go that far back. But I think what a lot of people know you from maybe originally is sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'll go back, not too far back, but I'm from St. Anthony.
Yep.
So I was born and raised in Idaho, just up the road a few miles in St. Anthony. We weren't the best in sports when I was there. I mean, my football team, my senior year, did not win a single game.
Well,
so keep everybody on, I want you to think that I didn't come from like this winning program and we were just like, it just is what it is. And I had a lot of people, through that stage of my life tell me, oh, you got to transfer to a better school. You got to go somewhere that they're really good. You got to go somewhere so you can get seen by colleges, so you can get seen by all those kind of things. And I learned real quick that that's obviously not the case. I think they're trying to find the best talent, the best work ethic, good people, somebody who's going to help their program be successful.
Yeah.
And somehow I was discovered, and it's not just my senior year performance, right? You've got to perform throughout you're coming all the way up through high school. You got to do good in school. They got to just see that you're overall going to be somebody who can benefit their program.
How did you figure out, like when you were getting that advice, you got to transfer, you got to go to a better program. As like a high school kid, how did you decide that's not it?
Well, I'm pretty stubborn sometimes.
I haven't known you that long, but I already feel like I know that about you.
I kind of get my mind set on something and I'm going to work on it. The biggest thing for me is I really enjoyed where I was at. I loved where I was. I loved St. Anthony. I loved my home. I love my community. Yeah. They helped raise me. They helped me become who I was.
It's a beautiful town.
Yeah. And so for me, there was, even at a young age, I was pretty tied to that, I wasn't going to, I'd have to go live with like my grandpa in another community to be able to go to this school. And there's all these different things that would have to happen. And for me, first of all, sports weren't that important. So it wasn't worth it for me to uproot my life to go play sports at another place. Like I said, the little atmosphere and family environment that I had was way more important to me. And so it wasn't much of a thing to navigate through. I just know I was getting that, like, hey, you need to go here. You need to go here. My mentality was I just need to become the best that I can be. And if it doesn't work out for college sports, that's okay. I wasn't planning on it anyways.
Yeah.
I was in my sophomore year of high school. I'm sitting in English class, which was not my favorite class, by the way. and I'm sitting there and we get a knock on the door and these two guys in like matching warm-ups, it looked like come walking, they're standing out there.
Were they like Italian gangsters or anything?
I didn't know. I was kind of like, they obviously looked like they were getting ready to go play a basketball game or football or something, but they talked to the teacher for a second and they were with my football coach. And then she asked if I could leave class. And first of all, I'm like, absolutely, let's
sounds
go.
great.
I can get out of English. It's good. Life's great. And then they walked all the way down the hall and just kind of started to introduce themselves. And I didn't know anything about college sports. And we just went into the office in the coach's office, and they started talking about, hey, we want you to come play, football for our program. To this day, I don't remember who the school was. I don't know anything about that program. I don't know anything about it.
You didn't go there.
All I know is that I wasn't even planning on playing college sports. I was going to stay at home, work on the farm, do what everybody else did. I wasn't even going to go to college.
Yeah.
That just kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And so then the process started, okay, I need to take these classes. And so I started figuring it out on my own and then started really realizing that there was an opportunity and I'd go to school every morning. So I grew up on a farm. It was just my dad and I. We had a full cattle operation and hay and grain and everything we had to do. So my grandparents lived close by. And then there was my dad and I at home. And my dad worked full time. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, my job was to take care of all the chores on the farm, both before school, after school. And I'm trying to figure out my life and my program. So I'm like, if I can work hard and just become the best at what I'm doing, I need to put in some extra effort here. So I'd wake up at 5 and I would do the chores on the farm. I'd get all the animals taken care of. Then I'd drive myself to school at 6 a.m. and I'd lift weights with a bunch of community members. One of them is still my neighbor, just a bunch of guys that would go lift weights in the morning in the high school gym. So I'm like, I can get better. And I know these guys are doing it. So I'd lift weights with them in the morning. And then at 7 a.m, I would go to my early morning jazz band because I was in the jazz band.
Yeah,
Absolutely loved
I love it.
I was a saxophone player, Barry sax.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd go to the early morning jazz band at 7 and I'd start school at 8 o'clock. So by the time 8 o'clock rolled around and everybody's just dragging themselves to school, I've already had a full day's worth
you've
of
already
everything.
done more than most people do in a day.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I'd go to school. And then after school, I'd do my sports, whatever it was, my after school practice or whatever. And then I'd come home and I'd take care of the chores and then I'd go to bed and I'd start over again. I don't ever remember doing homework. I don't remember doing those things. I look at my kids now and all the homework that they've got going on. And I'm like, I don't remember at all doing homework. I don't remember having all this stuff, but maybe it's because I was so busy. I was like, I can't afford to not have it done in class because I have too many other things going on, right? So that was kind of a routine I got myself in, and it's been a successful routine for me through my whole life.
Yeah.
You know what? If you get up early, by the time most people are rolling out of bed, I've had more done in that day than most people can get done in an 8-hour day themselves.
Well, there's something beautiful about those morning hours too, where there's no distractions.
Yes.
There's I've always told people that I work with, my best work happens outside of the hours of 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much going on and people interrupt me so much and there's things going on and, but at 6 a.m., the world's quiet.
Yeah.
Right.
pretty
You can
great.
you can really focus on stuff. Yeah.
And so creating those kind of habits, I think, help people be successful in whatever they're going to do. And I'm not saying you have to be an early morning person to be successful, right? Some people work their best at night.
Yeah.
Right. They like to stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning and they find their groove and they can edit videos or do the things that they need to do and they just really get going at night. But don't talk to them in the morning.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So everybody's got their thing that helps them be successful. To me, it's you find what works for you and then you apply those habits to help you become the person that you want to become.
Yeah.
And you're ever evolving in everything that you do. And so that habit right there is what helped me get to where I was at in sports, right?
Yeah.
So I get a chance, I get a full ride offer to go play at the University of Oregon, which I accepted. I had a few other offers, but that was the one I really felt like I needed to do. And then from there, before I left, I took a year after high school and I saved up money. So I went and worked construction and I was doing excavation and underground, putting in pipelines. And I just worked and worked and worked in long hours just to get enough money. And I worked for a year. Then I went on a 2-year LDS mission, right? And so I saved up money for a year. Then I went on the mission for 2 years. And then I come home and I'm 3 years removed from high school and I come to the University of Oregon to play football. Right. So I took this long road and luckily they honored the scholarship. And by the time I got there, then I redshirted a year and then I played so by the time I get my first year
You're
on the
like
field,
a full grown man playing against teenagers now. Yeah.
My first year on the college field playing ball was most people's senior year or the year after they've left and graduated. Right.
Yeah.
And so I definitely took the long route into it. But like I said, creating those habits and putting those things that are the priorities and more important to you in life, to me, has helped me be successful throughout this whole process.
I think there's something that's magic about just having discipline. You can be really, really great and have these short bursts of energy and accomplish things. But man, over the course of a year, just putting in a little extra effort every single day through getting up early or just concentrating and focusing on something, you can change the world with that. It's kind of remarkable, actually. Yeah. Most people self-select out of that. Yeah. Almost everybody does, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I have to ask, at what point did you realize you were good at football? Were you just you're like, yeah, I've always been good, or was it?
No. I've always been big.
Yeah.
And I've always been strong, and I've worked hard. Right.
Yeah,
those are the things.
For those listening, how tall are you?
I'm just under 6'7", so I'm 6'6" and 5'8".
Okay.
Right. If you ask my basketball coach in high school, I was 6'8". Right.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
Yeah.
So.
We shook hands earlier, and I felt like such a dainty little guy shaking his hands. Yeah. Okay. So you've always been big, but. So when did you figure out I could actually pretty good?
The key in high school was, when those guys came and talked to me and I was like, wait a minute, there's opportunities here and people want me to go play football. And I went to several camps and just got some feedback that was like, there's a lot of potential here, right? I always got the potential. Not that you're good.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of potential with this guy. He's big, he works hard, he can't walk straight, but he we're getting there, right?
There's some potential there.
There's some potential there, right? And so, I have never felt first of all, I never thought I was going to be able to make it to the college level. And then when I was at the college level, I never imagined I would go beyond the college level. I was just like, you know what, I'm just one of the guys here. I'm working my tail off. I'm trying to earn a spot. I just want to be on the team.
Yeah,
I just want to play. I want to contribute. And that finally came my junior year of college.
Yeah.
And then I start, getting feedback, and I'm doing good in the games. I'm playing, I'm performing, I'm doing well.
Real good. Yeah.
And all of a sudden I start getting people knocking on my door that are like agents and reaching out to me and like, hey, we want to represent you to go to the NFL. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. So it was back to almost the college scenario, but at the college, getting ready to go to college, but now it's in the college, getting ready to go to the NFL, people talking to me about going to play professional sports. And so through the whole process, I think I've never been a fan of football. And I want you to think of this when I want you to clarify fan, like the true definition of a fan. Like I've never been a guy that knows all these players. I follow the teams. I watch the game. You heard my schedule. I never had time to watch football.
Right. Yeah.
Never did. Never have watched football. Actually, I probably watched 5 football games in my life
that you were playing in.
Before I went and played in the NFL.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I'm assuming that most of those were the Super Bowl when we had like party together, right? I mean, it wasn't part of my life. So I love the game of football. I've never been a fan. If that makes, I want you to differentiate the difference between the two, right?
I love baseball. I love to play baseball. I don't really want to watch it though.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
but in that whole world though, so there's things about the game of football that I absolutely love. And so as I've got these scouts and agents and people talking to me about, potentially playing at the next level, they're asking me questions along the way that I'm as clueless as can be to, because I haven't followed as a fan. I don't understand that there's a draft. I don't understand. I didn't even know that there was a combine until partway through college, right? I'm like, what is this? And there's all these different things along the way that I'm just clueless to. And my family never watched it. We never followed it. So it's just, to me, it's like I'm learning every step of the way and just embracing it. And I think it was a huge blessing on my end, because I didn't have these big expectations. I didn't have these big letdowns when I didn't hit the status of the rest of the football world.
You just didn't even know about it.
No, I was just like, I want to work hard. I want to just give it my all, and I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to have fun and enjoy this experience. And it was the best path for me. I mean, I'm sitting on the field. This is jumping forward into the NFL, but our teams are practicing. We're practicing with the Tom Brady, right?
Yeah.
So it was when I was with the Eagles. We were up there practicing with them, and he's with the Patriots, and we're on this whole week long training together. And one of the guys comes up to me who was new to the team. He was a rookie that year, and he comes up and he's all like, "Can you believe we're on the field with Tom Brady?"
You're like, who?
Pretty much. At this point, I kind of knew who he was, but to me, he was just another player. He was just another guy. He was a good quarterback, but I never followed the game enough to be like, this guy's a big deal, right? And I just loved that he was a passionate football player. Right. He's out there working hard, and to me, I was like, yeah, this is cool. You want to go say hi to him? No, I can't do that. That's all I said, I'll tell you what, when I sack him, I'll pick him up off the ground and I'll introduce you to him. Now, I can tell you in practice, you can't sack Tom Brady.
Right.
There's like bigger than this table radius around him that you do not even get near.
Sure.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah,
there's a lot of money
probably
there.
A big no-no. Yeah.
But anyhow, so that's kind of, like I said, that's kind of how it's gone through into, like, I never really thought I never thought I was a good player. I just thought I was a hard worker. And I prided myself in the fact that nobody on that team is going to outwork me.
Yeah.
And if I get a job because of that, that's great.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty cool stories as we go into this that I could share with you that's really came from just that hard work and work ethic. So.
One of the things, and I've spent a little bit of time with you now before this, and one of the things that strikes me about you is you're a happy guy. Mm-hmm. You're like a really happy guy. And I think, just based off of my limited knowledge about you, I think it's because you really focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
And you don't worry about anything else really. Yeah. And watching you put that in display in not only your professional career in football, but in the other things that you've done professionally, it's cool to watch.
Yeah.
It's cool to watch because you just work on what you can work on and you just don't worry about the rest. In fact, we were sitting outside of your place in St. Anthony and we had that huge storm roll through and you had just raked your hay.
Yeah.
It was all blowing into the wind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was your field at the moment, actually. And I was like, oh, man, that guy's going to have to re-rake and hopefully it doesn't get too wet. Oh, that's too bad. And you were just like, yeah, we'll rewrite it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
Yeah. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, bring my girls out there with pitchforks and have them clean the fence off. And it was all good opportunities come because of it. Right. So.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to go back. So you're at the University of Oregon. You're playing well.
Yeah. Junior,
senior year, and you're getting ready to go pro. What are the conversations with the agents like? Like, peel back the curtain on that. Like, what happens there?
Yeah, well, I'll just kind of tell you guys exactly how it played out for me. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I was a little bit older guy, a little bit more mature. I've experienced life. I'd lived on my own for quite a while. You know, I've supported myself for a while. Even when I was at home with just my dad and I, I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father. And so that was one of the main reasons that I was doing all the farm work and all my school work and everything, because my dad worked full-time and drank full-time. There wasn't time for him to do anything else, right? I love him to death. And he's since passed away, and I love my dad to death. But it was just the environment I grew up in.
Yeah.
And so when I'm, going through these stages in college, and people are reaching out to me through the NFL, like, hey, we want to represent you. Scouts are talking to me. I'm analyzing this whole process. I'm like, okay, so if there's multiple guys that want to represent me as my agent, I'm going to be dumb to just be like, I choose you, right?
Okay,
it's just not how my mind worked. I actually set up. And people laughed at me at the time.
Did you make them do a combine? Make them that would have been fun.
In their own world, right? I picked 3 main guys that I was willing to, that I liked, that I got a feel about, and I set up interviews with them.
Yeah.
They had to come out to the University of Oregon. I brought in one of the staff members from the University of Oregon that could kind of counsel me through it. I brought in my wife. She was in there with me, and we had a set of questions that we wanted each to be able to answer so we could make a true educated decision on this.
That feels super reasonable to me.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah. But, most of these kids coming out of college, they're 20, 21, and it's just foreign to them a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Here I am, 26, going into my 27th year, and I've done a few things. I already have a couple businesses going, and I've done a few things, and so I'm just like, I'm doing this, right? So we come in, and I'm asking them questions that shock, and I'm not what cool headphones can you hook me up with? Right? And you would laugh about that, but it's the honest truth. Some of these guys are like, well, this guy's agent hooked him up with these headphones and this company and these things, and I want to have that too. And to me, I was like, okay, well, between college and if I make an NFL team, I've got a family, I've got a kid, and I don't have insurance. So who's going to cover my insurance? Are you willing to pay for my insurance? Who's going to cover my training? Are you willing to pay for my training? Is this going to be a loan, or is this going to be just your investment in me as a player? Right? These are random questions I'm asked this.
That's so funny.
Who's going to cover my housing? Is my housing going to be big enough for my whole family because they're coming with me everywhere I go? Right? Simple little questions. How many other D linemen do you already represent? Right? I don't need you to have 25 D linemen and then think you're going to give me all the attention in the world when a team needs a D lineman.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a new guy coming in. You got proven guys.
Yeah.
Just fun conversations that my wife and I sat down and had, and my wife would ask questions as well. And then I let the employee from the University of Oregon, he would sit down and ask them some questions. And by the time it was said and done, it was as clear as could be who I needed to choose. Right. One of them wanted me to pay for everything, or they would pay for everything, but it was a loan.
Yeah.
And I'd have to pay it back when I made the NFL team.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the one I ended up choosing said, I'm going to pay for your training. We're going to go train at this facility. We're going to do this, and this. And this is how it's going to be laid out. I'll cover your insurance, and just kind of talk through everything. And he goes, that's my investment in you. And so unless you get drafted really high up and make a ton of money, which none of us anticipated, I was just a guy that was hoping to make a team.
Right.
He goes, it's going to take me till the end of year 2 or going into year 3 to get my money back. And then I can actually make some money off of representing you. He was straightforward and honest. And so obviously we went that direction. Right. So we sat down and had interviews. We chose a guy. And the cool thing about that is we built that relationship where I knew I don't like people to have a burden because of me. Right. So I knew the years that I needed to make it to, just to make sure he was justified in his taking the risk on me. I wanted him to be, take a risk on me. I wanted to pay back. I wanted it to be worth his time.
Fair.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it all played out. And it worked out good. I went for 5 years, played for 5 years in the NFL, played for the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Eagles, and just had a great time. I wasn't drafted. I was an undrafted free agent, which was kind of the course of my life anyways. So I was the only undrafted player to make the Kansas City Chiefs squad that year, my first year. So out of all the guys that got drafted, there was, 7+ guys that get drafted, and I was the only one that wasn't drafted that was able to make the roster.
So in that in between, so you've selected your agent, you haven't made a team yet.
Yes.
What's the combine like? Like, what is that experience?
So have you ever been to like a cattle market?
Yeah, I have
It's
actually.
really similar to that.
Yeah.
They run you over here, you step on the scale. They take you over here and they show you off to everybody. They take you over here and they see how fast, whatever. Basically, no, the combine was a cool experience.
Yeah.
It was really neat. I went there with JJ Watt.
That's sweet.
I got pulled into all these meetings, and then they're like, "Oh, you're not JJ Watt," because him and I, big tall white guys that look just alike, both played similar positions, played the same spot. He's a lot younger than you. Oh, you're not JJ. Okay, so, sorry guys. Anyhow, but it was a really fun. It was a fun combine. We went to Indiana, is where it was at, and then we have so many days set out. One day you're doing your bench press, and the other day you're doing agility stuff on the field, where you're doing your L runs, your shuttle runs, your 40-yard dash, and then they've got days where you're walking around in little spandex shorts and you step on a scale, and they measure how big your hands are, they measure how long your arms are, they have you stand in front of a whole bunch of people, and you just stand there and turn around. Like,
it is a cattle market.
It literally it cracked me up. You've got guys that are like worried about their weight, trying to be heavy enough, right? And so they're back there just drinking water like crazy and like trying not to go pee. They're like, I got to drink. And then right before we get on there, you get grown men that are like running out of the room because they're almost peeing their pants. It's just funny how it all works, because obviously, me being clueless, like I said, was a benefit to me, because I just didn't really care, right? I am who I am. That's what you're going to get. And these other people were worried about all these things they're hearing from everybody else, and these stats they have to hit, and they have to meet this mold, and it just would get in people's head, and they'd psych themselves out.
Yeah.
We went through the combine, and I ended up having some of the best numbers and everything for my position. And it was great. The thing I had going against me is I was an old man,
right?
I was older. And so, that was something everybody always had to factor into it.
I was curious, like what did like the draft report say about you? Do you remember like what people were saying?
No, I mean, I was a
care?
guy, I didn't really care. I didn't follow it. But I was a guy that a lot of teams wanted on their team. Not as much for the longevity and the athlete that I was, but for the culture on the programs.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
I was more of a culture guy. I'll accept my role, right? I'm a guy that's going to help the program from a culture perspective. I'm going to help the guys make better choices. I'm going to influence the team in a good way. All these different things. Like
you mentioned like the agents, trying to figure out how to get them headphones and stuff. They may be the best in the world at what they do. They're still 20-year-old kids though.
Correct.
Totally.
Absolutely. And they're constantly like on edge. It was a funny conversation. Like I had a game when I was with the Philadelphia Eagles. I ended up starting for the Eagles, and I played out of my mind, had the best game of my life. My first start ever with the Eagles. Awesome experience, cool game. And my agent calls me up, and most guys are like, you need to get me more money. You need to get me this. I deserve this. I deserve all that. And my agent calls me up, and he's kind of prepped for that kind of stuff and talking to me. And as he gets through the conversation, he goes, you know what I love about you is you're just level.
Yeah.
There's no big ups and downs, and I'm having to like get you out of the down. And when you're up high, I got to satisfy you, how you feel and all this kind of stuff. He's like, you're just level, and I'm like, that's just who I am, right? That's just what you got to, I don't know. Everybody's got different personalities, and some of us are blessed with personalities that are harder to handle are on our own, right? I've got kids, I've got 4 girls, and everyone has a completely different personality life, right? And so it's just, like I said, this is just who I am. And that's kind of something I always encourage my kids when I talk to them. Like, you know what? This is who you are. Let's help you become the best you that you can be. Don't try to be anybody else. Don't try to be like all these other people. This is who you are. And you're blessed with that personality for a reason. Let's just help you become the best you can be within that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. Okay, so you do the combine and it's weird.
At Frontier Credit Union, we're changing the future of business with our Velocity Money Market account. You can receive unbeatable returns on tiered interest rates. We have rates up to 2.02% APY. Frontier Credit Union puts local businesses first because when you do better, we all do better. Federally insured by the NCUA.
You do the combine and it's weird, right? Then did you have any expectation after your combine performance that maybe I'd get drafted.
This is one of those times in my life where I started to listen to the people around me a little bit. I go to the combine, I perform well. I did really good in college. Tons of companies are giving me stuff. Oregon's a Nike school, right? We're just a Nike school, Phil Knight, Nike, Oregon. So when you play for the University of Oregon, if you make it to the NFL, you automatically get a Nike contract. So I've got Under Armour and Adidas and all these companies just giving me tons of stuff, trying to really convert one of these Oregon players, right? So all of a sudden these I'm going home with more luggage than I can even handle. And like, this is all right, this is cool. And then my agent's like, hey, it sounds like you might even get picked in the, 5th to 3rd round and maybe even the 3rd to 2nd round. Like, it's looking really good. I'm getting such good feedback. And so all of a sudden I start hearing these things and I'm listening to it. Well, and it was the year of the lockout.
Yeah.
The NFL lockout that year. And so after the combine, I come home and we don't even know if there's going to be, they have a draft, but we don't know if there's going to be a chance to go try out for a team, right?
Right.
So I'm getting built up for the draft. I'm here in Idaho, living back at home, baling hay, hauling hay, just working on the farm. And then my wife and I, we actually went over to Jackson and we got a place over in Jackson Hole, just ourselves. And we're like, we'll just watch the draft. I'm not going to be in a room with a bunch of family members. I'm not going to have everybody chattering around.
Yeah.
And we sat there and we watched the draft and we listened. We watched the draft, listened, and nobody called. And all of a sudden, I come to a point where I was all like, you shouldn't have listened to him. You shouldn't have got your hopes up. Just be who you are and whatever happens is going to happen, right? So there was a point, it was a little frustrating. We're getting into the 7th round, the final round of the draft, and I get a couple phone calls from my agent and a couple teams saying, hey, we might pick you up. We might not, but we're interested. And then I get more calls from teams saying, we're really interested in you because the moment the draft was over, because of the lockout, the teams aren't allowed to make contact with the players.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so there was this stage that people were prepping for. So all of a sudden I'm getting all these phone calls like, hey, we want you to be part of this team, but we're not going to draft you. We're not going to draft you. We're not going to draft you, like over and over and over again. And I'm sitting there like, well,
that stinks.
This is exciting.
Yeah.
When it was all said and done, I had 29 of the 32 teams that had contacted me. My wife and I wrote them all down on a board every time somebody had called. 29 out of 32 teams saying they wanted me to come play on their team.
Wow.
Which was kind of a compliment in the fact that, I was like, okay, cool. Well, if the lockout is lifted.
Who didn't call? Who was it?
I don't even remember. Sorry, I don't remember. But we had this big, cool list and then we're in the lockout. Nothing's happening. I'm not drafted. I don't know if I'm going to make a team. So I started hauling and baling hay and doing farm work and constantly talking to my agent, staying in touch with that. But there was months of like,
oh my gosh,
don't know what's going to happen next, right?
Wow.
What do I do? Do I just move on and get a job? Anyhow, so that's just that was that weird stage when I went from going undrafted, and then the lockout is lifted. And we have to be to the facility of whatever team picks us up within 3 days. So the lockout's lifted, training camp's starting. We've only got 3 or 4 days to get this all organized and done. And every one of those teams called me again. And my wife and I had to make a decision, which team do we choose?
Yeah.
And it came down to, I grew up a Cowboys fan.
Good man. Good man.
And the only reason I was a Cowboys fan growing up, I didn't watch the football.
Yeah, that's true. How did you become a
But
Cowboys
they
fan?
won like every Super Bowl when I was a kid.
Yeah, in the 90s, it was awesome.
Yeah, and so that's
rough
I'm all like, if I'm going to choose a team, I'd be a Cowboys fan, right?
Yeah.
I never followed them or anything, but they're winning, and I'm a farmer, I'm a cowboy, right? Makes perfect sense. So it came down to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cowboys. And I remember, once again, I was glad I was older, had some experience in life from a business perspective. And I'm looking at the team and I'm like, they have a bunch of guys that are just holding out and not wanting to come back, but that are probably going to come back. And so they're just hedging their bets that, okay, if they don't come back, we got a guy. But if they do come back, you're out.
Right.
I kind of read between the lines there.
Sure.
And there wasn't even the right defense that I really fit into.
Yeah, sure.
And so the Kansas City Chiefs was the same scheme that I was really comfortable with, and they really wanted me to be there. And so I chose the Chiefs. And the Cowboys called me up and they're like, we'll give you $500 more if you come to our team.
$500?
It was so funny.
Nice.
I'm like, wow, I'm hearing these huge numbers and you guys offer me $500 more of signing bonus to come play with you.
Sounds like Jerry
Nice.
Jones, yeah.
And so anyhow,
gosh.
I my signing bonus to go into the NFL was a whopping $7,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my incentive, my signing bonus. You hear
Okay.
these millions, right? I got $7,000 from the Kansas City Chiefs, even though the Cowboys offered me $500 more.
Yeah, you could have had $7,500.
I got $7,000 more, or $7,000 period, just to go, walk on basically or try out to go play for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
And so that was kind of that journey from there to the Chiefs. And then the Chiefs, I get there, I'm thrown into the loop of things. I don't know what's going on. And so I just have to go back to my roots of work hard, work, just work. Show these guys that you're going to work hard and do the things you're asked to do. I mean, I wasn't in any position to go off and do my own thing. Like I'm going to go rogue and they don't know what they're talking about, which you see all the time in the NFL. Like, my college coaches told me to do this and it's more important than what you guys are teaching me. No, if you ask me to do it, coach, I'm doing it, coach. Yeah. Right. I'm looking for a job. You asked me to do it. I'm going to work my tail off and I'll do what you asked me to do. And it paid off, ended up working out and I made the roster there. And once again, there's that funny stage of, okay, we're in training camp. And so people just start disappearing. Right? Because they're cutting people. I don't know any of this. I'm just like, what happened? Where'd this guy go? We
used to sit together during lunch.
Like, why is this locker empty? Where'd this guy go? Like people are just slowly getting chopped off the
rapture.
Block.
People
they're just gone. And so I'm going through this stage of being clueless. One of the long snapper on the team lent me his Jeep. He had this Jeep that had no doors on it, had a mesh top all over it. And I'm just like driving all around, listening to country songs, chilling on a dirt road, just hearing all this country music. And I'm just like, at nights when we have a little free time, my family was, back waiting for me to tell them what was going on. And I just go drive. And then, we play our last preseason game. And then I guess the final cuts take place after that.
Yeah.
Once again, I don't know how I was so clueless to all this because I feel like I'm a pretty sharp guy. But the last game happens, my roommate disappears. And I'm just sitting there chilling one afternoon and I get a call from my agent and he's like, congratulations. I was like, well, for what? He's like, you made the team. You made the roster. I was like, sweet.
I thought I was already on the team. What do you mean?
I didn't know I could disappear. I didn't know it was an option. And so anyhow, so I made the team. Luckily, I didn't have the stress of it. After that, I knew the process, right? So then year after year after year that I was playing, I've been cut from teams. I've been released during the season from teams. Like there's things that have happened that I've been a part of. That first year was just a big blessing of being clueless.
Yeah.
But then I was on the team. I was with the Kansas City Chiefs. I was on their roster and I just had got to start that unbelievable journey of playing and being part of this NFL programs and more the connections, the people that you get to meet, the coach. I was the age of most of the coaches, the younger coaches that were in there, And so I wasn't like the age of a lot of these players. I went in at 27 when most guys are retired by 27.
Right.
Three years is the average time in the NFL.
Amazing. So what's the thing you're most proud of your like NFL career? What was the thing that you're like, man, I'm glad that happened?
The biggest thing for me, and it's nothing major. I mean, I played when I got to the Eagles, I played in every single game. I started for the Eagles and I had a really good time on the field.
Yeah.
But to me, that was just part of being there. Like the stuff that I think that I gravitate to more is the relationships that I made. My favorite part about football was my teammates, my coaching staff, the staff in the facility, that I just took time to be with them and get to know them, get to know who their families were. And those relationships are what's huge today.
Yeah.
That to me is, I'm more proud of that. When I was with the Eagles and we were at the end of the time with right before I retired, I was next on the chopping block here and it was my final one, right? So we're at the Eagles, they just fired the head coach and there was a bunch of stuff. Well, no, they hadn't fired him yet.
Okay.
They did 2 days later, right?
Okay.
So I go and I meet with the guy. His name's James Harris. And he was kind of, player relationships, helping guys figure out life and get internships and things where they could kind of just work on transitions. Really good guy, but he was connected to Chip Kelly, our head coach. And I went and I sat down with him and I told him something that I'd heard from a guy that was speaking. He said, come what may and love it.
Yeah.
And I had just recently listened to this and I just thought it was so cool. And I went in there and I was in his office and he was telling me about different stories and different things going on. And I shared this with him. I said, hey, there's this guy that I really respect. And I was listening to his words on this. And he had this phrase, come what may and love it. And you know what? What else do you have control over, right? You don't have control over what's going to happen. So just love it. Whether it's good or bad, love it and find what you can learn from it, move on.
Yeah.
And we had a really good conversation about that. And then it was like the next day, him and the head coach were gone. They packed him up and walked him out of the facility. They weren't allowed to come back in. And I get a text from this guy and he sends me a text and he goes, Neither of us had any idea what's happening, but your words keep going through my head. Come what may and love it. And he goes, and I can't quit thinking about this. And I'm so grateful that you shared that with me. And that's a relationship thing, right? That's just taking the time to get to know people and sharing stuff that's important to you and that means something to you. And so those are like I said, my favorite thing about that whole experience and the things that I love is that it's just taking time to get to know people.
I love that answer actually, because it could have been all kinds of different things. And that's a really cool answer actually. Have you ever been approached to coach or be part of a coaching? Why have you not done that?
Well, that's a great
because you
question.
seem like the perfect candidate to do something like that.
That's a good question. My wife and I talk about it a lot. So when I was my last year with the Philadelphia Eagles, I had a coach that coached with me in college. He coached in the NFL with us. Really good relationship with this guy. He goes down and he takes the head coaching job at University of Central Florida. And then he took the D-line coach that I was really close with. It was the assistant D-line coach with me at the Eagles and at Oregon. He took him down to be the defensive coordinator. And then they reached out to me and were like, we'd love to have you come down here and be a D-line coach. So go straight from the NFL to being a college D-line coach. I think I could have done a great job. I would have loved it. But I was still playing. I was still under contract. I just signed an extension with the Eagles. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to hold strong here. And they ended up hiring somebody. And then they've reached out to me several times. I went and spoke to their team. I do a lot of speaking now. So I went and spoke to their team when they're at University of Central Florida. Actually, it was the only undefeated team that year. I spoke to them early on. I just want to put that out
I
there.
think we know why.
I'm just going to take that credit. No. But Scott Frost was the head coach. Then he went to Nebraska eventually, and I went and spoke and worked with that team and those guys and that coaching staff.
What was their record? How did they do that year?
They didn't do so good in Nebraska.
That was definitely not your fault, though. They messed that up. That's on them.
We'll just, we're just gonna leave that one out. It's just like on social media, right? You only see the good things.
That's right.
We're gonna put the good stats out there. We're gonna keep everything else to the side. That's right. But anyhow, so I've had those opportunities. I've had the chances at high school levels to help out and to assist, but I've been blessed with 4 girls, and so that's probably the big factor of me not going to coach football is I do stuff with my girls.
It's amazing.
Right? And so I'm taking my girls, they like, my oldest loves basketball and volleyball and track. We just went to a big track camp in Washington and she really loves to throw and discus. And as a freshman went to state and is just doing really good in that. And then my younger girls, like just doing stuff with them. We love to we go hunting and fishing and riding horses together. So to me, it's more of, like I said, if I had football players, if I had boys, there'd probably be, I'd be like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be on that staff. I'm going to help you because I can help you a ton, Instead, my focus has been on my girls, right?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so stepping away from football for a minute, you're not just a football player. You do a lot of other things. Yeah. You're a very talented entrepreneur. You've got your hands in all kinds of different stuff. Tell us about how you first started some of your businesses and what the inspiration for that was.
And I don't know that I'm a very talented entrepreneur. I might be crazy because
prolific. You're at least prolific.
I like to do stuff, right?
Yeah,
I like to get stuff going. I'm not one of the people that sits on the back burner and says that would be a great business. That would be a great idea. Yeah. Like if I hear that would be a great business, and if I'm looking for something to do, which now I'm not, just putting that out there. I got a lot going on. Then I go do the research. I'm like, is this possible? Does it make sense? And if it does, then why won't we do it? Let's do it, right? So it started when I was in college. I had this 1700 Yamaha Roadstar, this big motorcycle, big cruiser, had a big windshield up on the front of it. And I bought that before I was married. I bought
Naturally,
that. Drove it from Idaho to Oregon, and I drove it every single day, rain, snow. It didn't matter. I drove it to school. I had my leather chaps on, the leather jacket, the helmet, and I was just like, that was. And my mom's maiden name is Davidson. And they rode Harley Davidsons, and we rode on motorcycles all when I was in high school, like big, huge 4 or 5 day cruises. So it wasn't new to me. Yeah. So I get this bike and I'm loving life, riding to school, justifying the fuel, right? That's why I got it, is the fuel, saving money on fuel.
I've tried to have that conversation with my wife. She hasn't bought it yet though. Yeah.
And so then I get married, and my wife and I had a lot of fun on the bike too. And then my first daughter's on her way, right? So I start thinking, okay, the scholarship check, all right, it will cover me. We've made it work with me and my wife. I don't know about diapers. I don't know if it's going to cover number 3. Right. And so I start figuring out, I'm like, I got to do something different. And so I've got this motorcycle, and at the same time, there was a good friend of ours who had this old 1972 Cadillac Eldorado. Okay? Big old huge 2-door massive car. Well, here, us rednecks down here in St. Anthony, there was this demolition derby where you get these cars and you crash them and run them into each other. And I'm thinking, this thing's going to be indestructible, right? I'm in college. I'm way far away. So this guy's like, hey, the city's going to charge me to take this off my property because I've got it in the street. I've got a new car. I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, well, does it run? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what do you want for it? He goes, if you take it, it's yours. Just get it out of here. I'm like, sweet. I'll take this home and put it in a demolition derby, right? Well, I realized that didn't make any logistical sense. And so
it's a fun idea,
the seat belts, you could grab them and they were rotted because of the sun. They just tear apart. And so I start going to this in Oregon. They got them around here too, but they like pick apart, you go to these scrap yards and I start finding things. I start putting this car back together. I grew up on a farm. I can figure things out mechanically. I'm no mechanic, but I can figure it out. So I get this car like where it's looking and functioning nice. I'm driving it and I finally make a deal to sell this car to a teammate. I sell it for $500, a shotgun and a pistol.
Nice.
Right? So I get this car, I do some trade work and a little bit of cash.
That's a backwoods deal if I ever heard one.
I know, exactly. And then I turn around and sold the pistol separately and kept the shotgun. I might eventually sold it too, but anyhow, so I get this car, I sell it, and then I have another teammate who's got this motorcycle that's what we call them crotch rockets. It's this Gixxer 1100, and this thing was fast, but it wasn't working. He couldn't figure out how to get it to work. So I made a deal with him. I said, I'll take it off your hands, which was a service to the community and everybody. he should not have owned this bike.
Right.
So let me take this off your hands. If I can get it fixed, I'll give you $500 for the bike.
Yeah.
If I can't, then I'll just give it back. Whatever I put into it, I can't figure it out. It's yours. Yeah. No big deal. And I go through the carburetor, I get this thing running, and this thing is fast. I got it fixed, and I'm just, I get on the road, and I go down the road, and I'm not afraid of the power the bike has. I'm afraid of me with the power. Does that make sense? Right?
It does.
So I get the bike fixed up, and then I pay him his $500, and I turn around, and I sold it for like $1,700. I'm like, okay, I could flip some cars.
Something's working.
Yeah. So I go back to my motorcycle and my wife being pregnant, right? I had started to go to this auction locally about how do I pick up cars and had some mentors in that world. And I was like, well, why don't I just become a dealer? Because legally, if you flip more than one car a year, you're technically supposed to have your dealer's license. Yeah. If you do more than 5, you have to prove that you're not a dealer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, let's just do it right. So I sell my big motorcycle. I take this motorcycle, I sell it, I get a bunch of money. I go to school, separate from my schooling. I go and I become a dealer. I take the classes to become a dealer. I get bonded, I get insured. I lease a lot from a guy in town there. And I become a full-on car dealer, a used car dealer, right? And that's how I'm going to make money to pay for diapers and pay for these kids while I'm going to school. Now, at the time, we couldn't endorse businesses and stuff from NCAA athletes. Yeah. And so I couldn't have my name on it. There's a bunch of restrictions.
But you did a lot of standing out on the lot there so people could see it.
Yeah, we made it work. There was no time to be on the lot, to be quite honest, but we sold cars. I started buying $500 to $1,000 cars and flipping them for $1,500 to $2,000. And when I was all said and done, after I sold that motorcycle and paid for classes and bonding and insurance and all, I had $3,000 to my name. And I just started flipping that $3,000. And I kept thinking, I'm going to need this money to pay for my family and everything. And we were able to make it work. And so that money would just go right back into the business.
Right.
And so that was between my sophomore and junior year. And then when I graduated and was training for the combine, I bought my last truck with that dealership of me being there. And I paid $30,000 cash for the truck, sent it down the road, and I sold it for $35,000. Right. And so my last vehicle made more than what I started with. Yeah. And I just kept putting that money right back into it, and I ended up not needing it. And so that was my introduction. That was my start into these businesses. And then it just spiraled out of control.
What did it spiral into after that?
So when I was in college, I had this vision. I was an economics major, economics with a minor in Spanish. And I had this vision of, I'm going to own a duplex. I'm going to live in one half of it, and I'm going to rent the other half. That half is going to pay for my mortgage.
For the whole thing, yeah.
And I'm going to live for free through college, save money. Like I had this vision. Well, nobody would lend me money. Right?
Yeah, sure.
You guys get it? You're in the banking world.
Yeah, right? I wouldn't give you a dime.
No, nobody would lend me money. I had nothing but a scholarship check that could be pulled the moment I made a bad decision, right? And so I can't get any of my family, like a bunch of my family had filed for bankruptcy and family just wasn't willing to co-sign.
Yeah.
Like, I have these big aspirations to do something great and I can't do it. Like I'm just limited. I can't do it. And so I figured out what I could do. So I started with the car dealership, and then I took that money and I heard about this North Dakota thing where I could buy like a vacuum trailer in North Dakota. You've heard that deal. You guys went through it, right? And everybody talked about, you can make so much money over there. You can make so much money over there. It's just this huge deal. It's awesome. Yeah. It was during that time with the draft and everything. I'd come home and I was there and I was like, well, if I can't get anybody to lend me money, I don't have a job. I've got this cash from the dealership and this vacuum trailer thing sounds like legit. So I called up a buddy who I knew was over there and I said, okay, if I had you a trailer, in a month, what would you lease it from me for? And he goes, well, I'd pay you $1,000 a week. I was like, okay, so this is good. I said, would you be willing to sign a 6-month contract? Absolutely. I cannot get a trailer over here. We just short on them. We need more trailers. Okay. So if you'll do a 6-month contract, I'll have you a trailer in a month. Didn't know I was getting the trailer yet, but I was like, I'll get you a trailer in a month. And I mean, well, that makes perfect sense. $1,000 a week. That's great.
Yeah.
Sounds really good. So then I got off the phone with him, made a phone call. I literally Googled vacuum trailer and I found a company in Utah that was just going to start building them. I call them up and I say, hey, I need a vacuum trailer. Could you do it for me? And they're like, we just put that online and we haven't built one yet. You would be our first customer. I said, okay, will you do it? He's like, absolutely. I said, what do you need? Like, we need a deposit. I said, okay, I will drive down there, see your facility, see what you got going on. And I'll be down there tomorrow and let's do this. And took them down $5,000 of deposit and they built me a vacuum trailer. They built it to the specs this guy wanted. He would call me and say, I need this in the braking system. I need this, in the baffles on the inside. I need this the way this is built. And I was like, okay, I got it done. Maybe a little luck, but I got it all built. And I turned around and I used that money that I had in the car dealership and I went to a bank and I said, okay, here's the deal. Here's my lease, 6-month lease, this amount of money. It's going to more than pay for this thing.
Right.
I have half down in cash for what I need. Would you lend me money? Finally, a bank lent me something.
Yeah, I would think at that stage.
First time ever, I got a bank to lend me something. And so we put it together. It more than paid for itself in 6 months. What the difference? The end of the 6 months, a guy called me up and said, can I buy this from you? We need one and I'll just buy it from you. I said, sure. So he paid me $5,000 more than what I had it built for. And I finally had enough cash to go buy my first rental house. Right?
Okay.
It was the long road to get there.
Sure.
But I wanted to be in that real estate world and the rentals. And that was I don't know why I wanted, that's what I wanted to do. And so at that moment, I did that. Now, in the meantime, during all this, I did get picked up by the Chiefs and I was on the NFL roster and I had all this business going. I had enough money to buy my first rental house before I actually had a job in the NFL, right? It was kind of cool. Kind of a cool experience. And so then I started rental houses. And that's kind of been what got me in the housing industry, which you're familiar with today.
Yeah, I've been to your place out there. So tell us about how you started that facility.
Yeah, so I started acquiring rental houses.
Yeah.
Right. I got this first rental house. Then when I'm playing in the NFL, I actually have a little bit of cash and I buy a house in Tacoma, Washington. My in-laws are from Seattle. I buy a house in Tacoma, Washington to fix and flip this house. I bought it for dirt cheap and learned a valuable lesson. I paid for some schooling there by giving money to contractors and not being there. And I learned a lot, right? When it was all said and done, I realized I don't need the quick cash from the house. Let's turn it into a rental. I rented it out for several years. Then I learned of a mobile home park, a community that I could buy. And there was a good opportunity. And so I learned about 1031 exchanges and I could sell this house in Washington, which I sold it for a couple $100,000 more than what I was into it because of that market over there was just growing so fast. Yeah. And I was able to do an exchange and I bought my first rental community and I bought a mobile home park. My wife and I had a goal to own 10 houses outright and then turn around and maybe sell those and buy an apartment complex or a rental community. Well, we fast tracked a little bit. We didn't own 10 houses, but I did it. So I bought my first mobile home park. So now I've got a mobile home park in Montana and I'm looking at buying other ones or building ones. And I'm talking to dealers about how to get mobile homes. And I just seen an opportunity in St. Anthony of a dealership that I could start up and do there. And so I was like, well, if I'm a dealer, I can supply myself my own houses. Plus that's a business that'll make money itself. Yeah. It all just made sense, right? And I had some great partners in the community that had the same mindset and we came together and we made it happen. And then since we've built mobile home communities, brand new ones with our own homes, because now we're dealers and I can get them at cost. And so that's just kind of how those merge together, right? You know, and it's just kind of
smart.
I take like things that are within the wheelhouse, right? So I have rental houses, I have farm ground, I have properties that I lease out. And then within that realm, I've ran a dealership before, right? So a mobile home dealership, you know, is also I have my auto's license with it. So I'm still a car dealer, even though I don't flip cars.
Right.
So I've got the mobile home. I'm like, well, let me add that. It works. It supports our community. It supports what we're doing. So I got the mobile home there. And then, you know, maybe let's have an excavation company so we can do the work here. Let's maybe have a construction company because it supports building garages and things for the mobile home. Right. So they all work together.
Right.
I do have a couple out there companies, like my outdoor business with packs and things like that don't really fit in this wheelhouse. But
you love. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. You just had an archery shoot.
At Frontier Credit Union, we offer startup loans for emerging businesses to help support you in the early stages of growth. This could be for inventory, equipment, or other operating expenses. Almost all businesses qualify. Get started today by visiting our site, frontiercreditunion.com, federally insured by the NCUA.
You just had an archery shoot just recently. Tell us about that whole program.
Okay. Real quick, when I was a kid, I loved to hunt and fish, and I mainly did it to put food on the table. That was kind of the reason. That was my job. So I grew up outdoors loving it. Told my wife about this the whole time we've been married, and I've been playing the NFL, and I'm never hunting because I'm in the middle of hunting season. I've got something else going on.
Yeah.
So when we get done, you know, with the NFL, she's like, I'm so excited for you to be able to go hunting finally. You've talked about this, and it just sounds like a childhood, something you loved as a child, and I'm grateful that you can go do it now. Now she's like, what in the heck did I let him start doing? So let's put that out there. So then I started, you know, I got into the hunting, but when I retired, some buddies came to me with an idea, and I started an outdoor pack company with these guys. And so we build waterproof gear. We build backpacks, gun cases, bino harnesses, just waterproof hunting gear that's used for Alaska, Northwest, all over the world.
Yeah.
So I've been running this company, but it's all been focused on nationwide, overseas. This is the company here, Rockman Waterproof, right here. And so it's been focused on everywhere else. And we just had last year, we're like, we don't ever do anything for our local crowd. You know, we never spent time and done things for the locals.
And there's quite the hunting community here too.
Yeah. And so, and at the same time, the Mule Deer Foundation, it was their 35th anniversary. And I've got some really good relationships with them. And they're based out of Utah, their headquarters. And so we just, a bunch of us were talking, and one thing led to another. Like, we're looking for an event to do our 35th anniversary celebration at. Well, we're looking to start an event. There's a risk on their end, right? Well, we're pretty established, and you guys have nothing. You've never done this event,
right?
But it all came together. We decided, we leased out Kelly Canyon Ski Resort, and we put on a big 3D archery shoot where you ride the ski lift up and you walk down one of 3 or 4 courses, and you shoot it almost like a golf course.
Right.
You keep score on your card, you shoot the targets, get to the bottom, you keep going, right?
Such a fun idea. Yeah.
It was awesome, right? And it's not unknown in the world of archery. People do it all across the country. And so we put one on for our local event, but we went really big with the Mule Deer Foundation. We had huge screens. We decided to do a live auction on top of the mountain. So we do a big dinner celebration on top of the mountain where, you know, people come up and they ride the ski lift up. This year we give them all lemonade, right? Here's you a nice lemonade. And they got on the ski lift and they sipped it all the way to the top. Then they get to the top and then they have their tables and we eat dinner and we have live country music. Christy Lee Cook from American Idol, she came and performed. She's one of our influencers for Rockman. She came and performed. Anyhow, so we just put this big, huge celebration last year together. We did it. We just finished it. Like, I just pulled all the targets off the mountain yesterday.
Yeah.
And for the second year in a row, it's just been an unbelievable turnout, done so well. And it's just a fun event. You know, we get a ton of people that come out. We have vendors, people that bring their businesses and they set up stuff. And so, you know, the shooters can go shoot. They can come down. They can bring their family. There's something for the kids. They can buy all the stuff that they need. There's knives. There's bows. There's stuff to get your arrows set up, to fine tune your bow. Like, there's just ways to help you get prepared for hunting season. It's kind of evolved of like, okay, we're doing a big give back to the community. But my whole mindset from playing in the NFL and everything that I'm doing is, you know, how can we become the best at what we do? And so, we're given a fun activity, but this activity is based around, okay, if I want to be the best archer and the most ethical hunter I can possibly be, I need to have every opportunity to practice. So then we set our courses in a way that it's not like so challenging that you just lose arrows every time. It's like real life scenarios.
Yeah.
And so when you're done, like our feedback has been so good. When you're done, it's like, I feel like I can go hunting now, and I feel like I can make, really ethical shots. I can just be so much better at what I do, And so to me, it's all about opportunities to improve who we are in what we love to do. And that's what we've provided with this big archery shoot here in Ryrie up at Chili Canyon.
Cool.
So
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, your favorite hunt you've ever been on?
oh boy. There's a little bit of an addiction there, I think, all of a sudden.
Sure. Yeah,
I have to hunt for work. I have to get
That's
content.
really unfortunate for you.
And we have to show
a lot of hard work.
We have to show that this product can be used in all all environments, all parts of the world, right? New Zealand, we have.
Yeah, how do I get on the roster for this
I
deal?
know,
How does
I
that
know.
happen?
You just pay for it. Someday the companies will make money. Right now, it's a hobby. But the last couple of years, I've had some really neat experiences. Like they've come together over the last 3 years. I go to Alaska a lot. My sister lives up there.
Yeah.
So I've gone up to Alaska. I've hunted moose, caribou, brown bear in Alaska. All of them unbelievable hunts. I've loved, Alaska's got a special place in my heart.
Sure.
I love Alaska. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that compares to hunting in Alaska.
Yeah, probably true. Yeah.
So I've had fun up there. I've loved it. And I took my little brother up there and got him a moose. And I took family and got them bears. We've hunted together and I've just really enjoyed it. And then I've gone to South Africa hunting. I just got back from New Zealand this April, this spring, and my wife and I went and camped on top of a mountain for days. We were in New Zealand for weeks, but we were on top of this mountain for like 4 days, living in a little teeny tent, hunting up in the mountains where we had to hike steep mountains every day, like 20 miles a day, coming back and just putting in the work, and such an awesome experience.
Yeah.
But when it's all said and done, my favorite hunt I ever did was one that I never even hunted at all. So I took my daughter last year. My daughter shot a bigger bear than I have. My daughter shot deer, and she really wants to get an elk. And so because we did the archery shoot, she got into archery and shot a bow She got shooting a bow. Well, she's surprisingly strong for her age. And so she was able to pull back a bow legal to go hunt with and just get ready. So last year, her and I would ride horses into the forest, and we hunted elk for days and days and days. And we would do it every time she had a break from volleyball. Every weekend, I had a camper left up there. We just run up there real fast. We'd hunt the next day. And that's been my favorite hunt so far to date.
Cool.
I remember walking in, like we're in the middle of elk. They're screaming all around us. They're bugling. They're running everywhere. My daughter's looking at me like, this is like, what do we do?
Cool. Yeah.
We jump off the horses. We tie them up. We sneak all the way in on this one, and we can see him just sitting there eating. And her and I just sneak right up to it, and we get like 40 yards from it. And I got goosebumps thinking about it. Right? She
I'm getting them too. I wasn't even there.
She turns and she looks at me and she goes, "Can I shoot it?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's why we're here.
Yeah,
let's do this."
Exactly. Yeah.
And she was able to shoot her first elk. And to me, like that, and this was last year, 14 years old. That's been by far my favorite hunt. Like when I've almost to the point where I want to retire the bow and the gun on my end. Like I'll still go do stuff.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'm going to Alaska on a mountain goat hunt here in a couple of weeks. So I'll go still do stuff. But when I'm with my wife and my kids and I get to take them out, last year I took 5 different people out hunting, and the only one who didn't get something was myself.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just had some really cool experiences, and that's becoming what I love more than anything. Just going and seeing and helping people understand why we do this. It's not just killing stuff. There's a whole aspect of conservation to it, and it's just I really, really love it. So anyhow,
as a father, that speaks to me.
Yeah.
Like when I take my kids to hunt or fish or anything. Oh, in fact, when we go fishing, I don't even bring my own gear anymore because it's like there's no time to do that really.
You're untangling lines and reels and putting hooks on
I'm
and
gonna bait
worms.
that again. Okay. That sort of thing. But there's something, man, when I remember when my oldest daughter, Nora, we were out on an alpine lake in Wyoming and on a little canoe right at dusk, beautiful place. Brooklyn Lake is what this place is called. And she'd just gotten her first fly rod and she was figuring out how to cast it. And, the light's low and it's perfect. And you see it's just brook trout mostly just moving around. And she hooked her first brook trout on that fly pole. And it's just magic.
Yep.
Right. Like, and there's no way to describe it. unless you're like a parent watching your kid do this for the first time, right? It's like the pride.
Oh yeah.
And like the excitement that you have for your child is pretty unreal, actually. That feeling's like addictive.
Yeah.
Right?
No
really
question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So Brandon, you've done so many things with your life, so many cool things, so many interesting things. And what I love about you is you're such a regular guy in spite of all of the stuff that you've done. What advice do you have for regular people like you and I who have aspirations to start businesses or do something great?
First of all, find something you love.
Yeah.
That's one it's not new to anything. But I have to go back. I tell this to kids, I'll tell this to adults, and everybody's like, really? Well, I know that. Well, you have to do it, right? You got to work hard.
Yeah.
There's nothing else about it. Work smart, but you've got to put in the work. And that's, to me, if you're willing to put in the work, you can be successful at anything you want to do. Anything. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, way more reasons that I shouldn't have been successful in the NFL than there was that I there. And working hard was probably one of the number one reasons that I was successful. And I'll attribute that to anything because I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn. And more than anything, I'm willing to work really hard. And if you're willing to do that, good things will happen. Even if it's not what you ultimately end up doing, you're going to learn the things that are going to help you be successful in the endeavor you end up going into, right? It's going to help you get to the path you need to be. So you gotta, it's kind of like I don't know if you call them primary answers or whatever it is, like, oh, work hard. We all know that. No, it is the honest truth.
Right.
And that's not just like a physical work, but it's like, there's a lot that goes into working hard, mental, physical, emotional. Like there's a lot of work that goes into that. And if you're willing to put in the work, you'll be successful no matter what.
Look, could we dig into that just a little bit more? Because I think you're right. And I think a lot of people hear, oh, just work hard, and it comes off like a primary answer or maybe trite or whatever else. But I think it takes like a special mindset to just say, and it's not just like, I'm going to work hard today. It's like, no, I'm going to work hard this decade, right? Like it's a different kind of mindset.
Yeah.
How do you, maybe if that's not a natural like proclivity that you have, how do you get your head into that spot?
Ooh, that's a great question. Because a lot of people just come by it naturally, right? They just got a little bit more grit because of what they've gone through in life. Yeah. But I think you're going to acquire that by just putting in that effort and going into it. So you've got to be, first of all, determined not to quit as you're going, and know it's going to be hard. And you dive into it and you just start working and working and working. And that's where people are like, yeah, I'm going to work hard at the beginning. It's like the first of a marriage, right? I'm willing to put in everything. I'm willing to work. And then when things get tough, all of a sudden, maybe I'm not going to work as hard anymore.
We're going to watch this show today.
Yeah.
Do that instead.
And there has to be like this determination and this deep grit of like, I am just going to make this happen no matter what it takes. And I know it's going to be hard. And I know I'm going to go through some hard things, and that's okay because that's what's going to help me become the person I need to be. So this will be successful. I don't know if that's diving into it enough for you, but to me, you do studies on that word alone, grit.
Yeah.
And what it entails and how it gets you to become the person that you are. Most people that they define as having grit, they've gone through some stuff in their life.
It's true.
Right?
It's very true.
And you have to be willing to persevere through hard things. And I think if you don't have hard things that come to you in your life, if you're willing to work hard to try to accomplish something, you're going to create hard things.
You are. That's very true.
They're coming, right?
Very true.
And that helps you get that grit. That helps you become that person that you need to be. But it's not just going to happen. Yeah. Nothing happens. Yeah. And just like, oh, I got thousands of dollars sitting in my bank account because I just woke up today. Yeah. Nothing
because I really wanted
to happen. Right. And the ones that maybe were born into that kind of stuff, I mean, ultimately you look at life patterns and the history of how people are, right? The people that don't have to work for what they have, they lose it.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Whether it's their generation or the next, it's gone.
Yeah. I've always thought that it's not having it that's great. It's the pursuit of it. That's
absolutely
great.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the part that you really, there's something about that that's satisfying.
And when you're going into a new business or a new endeavor, like what's your focus, right? The pursuit of it is a huge thing to think about, right? If my focus is just to gain money, I think your focus is in the wrong spot.
It's probably wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right? If it's all about just the money's the dollar, then I don't think you're going to make it. It's not going to work.
You'll end up hating it anyway.
Yeah. Because you're going for the wrong reasons. Right. But if it's that pursuit of doing something, becoming something, creating something great, maybe creating jobs or employment for people. Like what is that thing behind your motivation? Those are what you need to really hold on to. For me, when I was playing in the NFL, when I was playing sports, like my motivation was my family, right? Yeah. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if I can make it to year 5, I can get full retirement out of the NFL. I can make the most out of this experience. And I had pictures of my family in my locker. When I opened it up, like my focus was there. The things that were there to help me remember why I'm here, why I'm doing this. Because I could think of a lot of things are more exciting to do in my life. You might not think that, like I'm playing football, but it wasn't all, cupcakes and roses like everybody thinks. Like it's a hard work. And like I said, people just disappear around you all the time. They're just gone.
It's like a horror movie.
It's pretty cutthroat business. Yeah. So, but anyhow, so that to me, it's like, what is that focus? Yeah. Will help you to be able to work towards what's right, and make sure your focuses are on the things that are important.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a mentor tell me one time, and it stuck with me. And these guys I think have all heard me say it before, but to do something extraordinary requires extraordinary effort, and so few people are really willing to like put in extraordinary effort.
Yeah.
Did you ever read that book by Angela Duckworth, Grit? That book's called. Great book.
Oh yeah.
It's been a long time since I've read it now, but one of the things that they do talk about in that is there is a direct correlation between grit and success, basically.
Yeah.
And not a direct correlation in IQ and success.
No.
Right. And so the whole world.
I've been banking on that my whole life, by the way.
Yeah. Well, the whole world is littered with incredibly talented, lazy people.
Yep.
Very true.
Who never do anything with their whole lives.
Yeah.
And then you see people who are maybe not the most talented, but are willing to work their tail off. They do incredible things.
Yep.
It's really interesting, actually. And it's funny because it requires no talent, right? To like show up and work really hard.
Yeah.
And it's the number one deciding factor of success, actually.
True.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Okay. What books, podcasts, resources would you recommend to people?
Oh man. That's Grit.
Yeah. Great book.
Grit is a great one.
Yep.
I could go through and flip through my, Audible?
Your Audible. Yeah.
That's 90% of the books I get through because I'm constantly on the go. I'm going somewhere and I just put in an earbud, or I'm driving on the car and I'm going somewhere. I always try to have something going. I don't know that I have a specific book that I would say the art of there's one that, no, it's not The Art of War.
Also a good one.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
The art of
learning, or the art of something. I don't know. I'd have to go pull it up. There's a ton of books that I really like. The podcast, your guys' is the one everybody should listen to.
Well, there you have it. You heard it here first. Yeah.
When I have time to actually listen to and read books, like it's typically, there's something I'm trying to figure out at the time. Like, okay, I'm really trying to break through in this portion of my life. And those are the things that I'll gravitate towards and go back and read or go listen to, and things that help me in there. So on the spot, I really love to hear people's stories. Yeah. So I love to see successful people and then go read like their biographies and stuff. That's the things I really gravitate towards. That's me. I love to learn from successful people and see what has got them to where they are and what are the things they've learned along the way. I really gravitate towards that kind of stuff. So, but the Grit one has been, as of recent, especially because of something my family's got going on, and we're working on a facility, that Grit has really been present.
Okay,
in our
so
world.
I can't think of a better segue.
Here we go.
Tell us about the facility, because we've talked about this a little bit.
Yes, we have.
Tell us about the facility.
So my wife played college basketball. She coached college basketball. I obviously played in the NFL. And both of us are super passionate about not necessarily the sport itself, but the work that sports, what it creates from the work that you put into it.
What it does to you.
Helping you become something, right? And becoming better people. And you can get a lot from that from sports. You can get it from anything. Like I was in band.
Yeah.
I love
jazz band.
Yeah. They apply in everything.
Do you still pull out that saxophone every now and again?
Every once in a while. My daughter plays saxophone now. And so every once in a while I have to show her, hey, your dad can play. Yeah. So our community in St. Anthony, where we're at, Fremont County, we just struggle for gym space. We struggle for places for kids to train, and people have to travel south. Everybody has to travel somewhere far away to go have something. I'm like, why can't we have something in our own community? We're working on it. We haven't got it all done yet, and it might take us longer than we want to. I don't know. But we first of all, started off, we created a nonprofit organization, and we called it Community Grit, because we love this part of Idaho. It's not just up in Fremont County, but this part of Idaho, its base is off of these farmers. Its base is off of these cowboys. Its base is off of just people that have just really worked to make this area grow and become what it is. And so we're like, man, how can we reinstill that grit in the community? How can people get back to that? And for us, we know sports. That's it, right? So we want to build a training facility. We want to build a facility that it's kind of like a rec center for all of Fremont County or anybody to come and use, but we want to build it where it's got basketball courts in it. It's got turf in it. You can do indoor soccer and football, and you can do basketball and pickleball and volleyball. And I mean, there's endless amounts of activities that you can do, but have it be based off of like this grit. Like, let's give kids in this community opportunities to do things that they're not going to get where we're at unless they travel somewhere else, right? Let's bring people to our area. Let's put on tournaments. Let's do stuff in our own community. So we're working on that right now. I've went and showed you guys, and we went and looked at some areas and some buildings that we're potentially converting over. So it's a big passion. Honestly, more my wife's than mine. She's super competitive and super passionate about the youth in our area, all the kids. And we have kids coming up, and she's just like, these guys just need something to do. They need to get out of the house, get off the computers, get off the video games, get away from the screens, and just do something, create goals and try to achieve it physically. And so that's our goal with this Community Grit. It's evolving as we go right now, but we're trying to, right after this, I'm going to look at a building right now that we're going to potentially use for down there. So to me, it's, that's what we're working on right now. So we keep talking about grit, right? We created a nonprofit called Community Grit because we're so passionate about, people putting themselves in situations where they can become gritty.
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, like, sports are such a great place to teach that. Both of us played sports growing up, nothing like you guys, but it's like sports were a big part of my life. It teaches you to work hard even when you're tired and don't want to. Yeah. It teaches you to self-evaluate ruthlessly and say, I'm bad at that. I got to practice it and get better at it. Teaches you to be coached, which is a really valuable skill. Yeah. Teaches you to like make connections with a team that allow you to accomplish things together. Like, it teaches a lot of really valuable life skills that are difficult to learn, I think, any other way, to be really honest.
How to lead, how to follow. Yes. Both of them are just super important.
Super important. Yeah. It's very true. Yeah. I think it's a cool project. And, the credit union, we've obviously we've supported some sports facilities. We just did one with District 91 for Idaho Falls High School to build an athletic complex because they've never really had anything of their own. Yeah. Then it's funny you mentioned jazz band. Like, we also participated in like the Frontier Center, which is a performing arts center in Idaho Falls as well, which is sports teach you wonderful things. The arts teach you wonderful things too that are valuable for your entire life. And so, we just believe in creating like good lives for people and helping people become well-rounded is a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a cool project. We're
really
excited to hear how that goes. Bailey?
I have actually a couple questions.
Okay.
Who's your team now?
Cowboys, right?
Yeah, actually, no. What's funny is everybody said, who's your favorite team? And I said, whatever team paid me.
That's right.
And so to this day, I follow the three teams that paid me. I keep track of the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. And 90% of how I keep track of them is people talking to me. Did you hear who the Chiefs picked up? No, who did they pick up? Oh, that's awesome. And then the next person, did you hear who they picked up? Yeah. And I can talk like I know everything about it when I haven't watched the thing. But I follow those teams. There's still some players on those teams that I played with that are good friends of mine. I've gone back to, obviously, University of Oregon's my team in the college world. They've had me come back and do a bunch of stuff with them. And our team, my senior year, our team got elected into the Oregon Hall of Fame.
That's cool.
And so they presented that to us last year. And it was our team. It wasn't an individual. It was the entire team, because we kind of changed that whole program from being just kind of an average program to always being on the top. And what took place, we were just a bunch of nobodies that had grit and worked hard, Cool. So it's just, but the teams that paid me are the ones that are my favorites.
That's cool. I want to go back to the mental game a little bit, because I think this is super interesting. So I played college softball, and I think it's so interesting to hear you talk about the mental spot of like not knowing too much. And and I think that's so like admirable. And I'm like thinking about like, oh, that's so impressive. And like how cool it would be to be able to really be in that moment, because people are always like distracted by all the things that they know.
Oh yeah.
So what's your advice for people to really be in the moment?
Ooh, I think it's going to be the focus on what really matters, right? Because if you listen to the world tells you everything that matters, right? If you're not this person, if you're not hitting this stats, if you're not throwing this fast, if you're not doing this, or this, then that you don't matter, right? When the reality of it is the things that matter are what helps you get to where you're trying to get to. So this is my goal, and what's going to get me there? Get rid of the nonsense. Get rid of all the fluff. Don't listen to the people around you. If you want somebody to help you feel better, then you go talk to your mom, right? But if you want to get better, that's normally not the person you talk to, if that makes sense. I mean, I love my mom to death, and she's pretty motivating. But typically, it's like, where do you seek your advice? If you want people just to help you feel good all the time, then you can feel good about anything. You can find that person that'll help you feel good about anything. But if you really want to be successful and get and accomplish something, then you need to listen to the people that are good enough friends that they're willing to cut you down in a good way and be like, you know what, this is what it takes to be successful, and you're not good at this right now, but we'll get there, right? And the other thing that I love is the word. I hate it when people use the word "I can't" or "that's not who I am." Here's another book, but fixed mindset versus growth mindset. If you guys get a chance to read that book, it's a great one. But if your mindset is, this is who I am, you're never going to go anywhere. You've put a blockade in your road, you're done. But if it's, I can do that, or I can figure this out. Like if my kids come to me and say, I can't do this, I look at them and then they instantly like, yet. I can't do it yet, Dad. Could you help me figure this out? They're constantly trying to wrap their head, but it's verbiage, and it's true though, right? You want to never put a bookend at where you're at in life. And so there's always something that you can figure out. So to me, hopefully that answers your questions, but it's having that goal and then a direct path to how to get there and listening to the right people. That's good advice. Thank you. Yeah. What's your message to the world? Oh boy. It's a great question. It's a big one. Kind of feeling the weight right now. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. I heard a graduation speech, and I can't remember who did it, but my message to the world is never, ever give up. That's it. Like, that was the graduation speech, by the way. Yeah. This guy, I think he's like a rapper. He pulls up in a limousine to speak at this high school graduation. He pulls up in the limousine. He gets out. He walks up onto the stage. He sits there for the second, and he says, never, ever, ever give up. And then he walked off and got in his limo and drove off. And it was the best advice ever, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to accomplish something, you're working hard, it's going to be hard. There's grit. You got to have all these things that we're like, oh, if I just put all these things together, it's not going to stop you from wanting to quit, because that's the easy way out. And most people in the world, that's what they do. That's why they sit. That's why they never try, because they're afraid of failure. Now, when you come to a football camp that I put on, the first thing I tell you is, you guys are here to fail. And they'll look at me like, what in the heck? I'm not supposed to fail. That's not right. No, you push yourself till you fail. And that's the only way you find your limitations. Don't be afraid of failing. Right? Push yourselves until you find something that you fail at, and now you know your weakness, and now I know what I can get better at. But if you do what's comfortable, you'll always be in that little comfortable spot, and you're never going to move forward. So, yeah. That's good. There it is. Gosh, I feel like that's a great place to end right there. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Brandon? No, I think it's awesome, guys. That's really good. Really good. Thank you for joining us on the DRGN SLYR Podcast by Frontier Credit Union. We'll see you next time. Woo! That was good. Really good. Oh yeah, and the hunting will bring out a whole nother personality too when it comes time for actually harvesting the animal. Oh yeah. When people miss or something goes wrong or things don't show up and there's no animals, like you get personalities that show up and you're like, oh, I didn't know that guy was in there. Yeah. What's funny from a business perspective, I like to go hunting with people before I'll like do stuff with them. You learn a lot about a person. It makes so much sense. You learn a lot about a person. You learn about like how hard they're willing to work. Yep. Totally you learn about like how gritty they can be. You learn about things are not going to go the way they're supposed to. What happens under pressure when things go bad. Guaranteed it's going to happen. You either miss a shot or animals don't show up, or you have to like work for 4 or 5 days longer than you're expecting to get something. And And then when something good does happen, how do they respond? You know what I mean? There's so many things I've learned from people in that.
Who volunteers to clean the deer? When
I got it. Man, my back just hurts. Can you take care of this for me?
That's right. Yeah. Who's willing to pack stuff out? And it's such a great point, actually.
The first round of interviews to work for you is a hunt.
I should
especially in the outdoor world. I've got companies that want to partner up with us, or they want me to come do this or that. I'm like, well, we should just put a little hunt together. Let's go on a hunt together. Yeah, that'd be awesome. You know, it's on purpose. Yeah. I mean, I love hunting, but I learn a lot about it.
No, it's telling. You're absolutely right.